everybody. We have a special guest today. Cassie is my cousin Cassie, and we're just we picked the topic of life after
Loss.
Life after loss. And to give you just a tad background, Cassie is not only my cousin, but she lives close by me, and she has 5 children?
5 now, yes.
5 now.
5 now. I have 4 biological, but 1 stepdaughter.
Right. 1 stepdaughter, 4 biological. And then she also had lost her husband, her first husband, or not her first husband, but she's lost her main husband. That was the majority of her life, a couple years ago. And she's moved on with her life, and we want to talk about those things today. So
a lot of us have a starter marriage, right?
Right.
A starter marriage.
Well, I can't even
we,
talk. I mean, you're not, because I've been married sometimes. But anyways, so talk to me. What happened with Jason first?
Okay, so 4 years ago, so Jason and I, we met online back before it was cool to do so. We got married. He immigrated from the UK to be here with me, and we grew our family. We had 3 children together. I had 1 from my starter marriage, and then 4 years ago, Jason, I got a phone call from his work that he had a medical episode, is what they told me.
Now, how old was he when this happened?
He was 51.
Right, and Jason was not big like most of my family. He was an in-shape guy, like.
And drank smoothies every day
Right.
for breakfast. He wanted lots of vegetables in his diet, like all of that kind of stuff. But he had a medical episode, which they made it sound like, they literally said, we're sending him to the hospital out of an abundance of caution, is what they said.
Wow.
Only to get to the hospital and the doctor to come in and tell me that my husband died.
Right.
And I thought he was kidding. My nose is itchy.
I remember you telling me this. This is interesting.
I literally, the doctor was really kind of no nonsense about it, because I guess he does it more often than, you hear that your husband died. And so he just came in and he was like, hey, Mrs. Clarkson, so your husband died. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? And that's when he kind of paused and he was like, yeah, so I guess I did just kind of walk in here and ruin your life, right?
This guy has the best bedside manner. Then he got honestly.
I said, what? He said, yeah, your husband, he passed away. We did everything we could, but we couldn't revive him. And to go from thinking, because Jason was at an Amazon facility, he worked there on the weekends during the pandemic. So to go from thinking that my husband maybe broke an arm, we're sending him to the hospital out of an abundance of caution. So we went from thinking maybe he just hurt himself, had a scratch, to all the way to death. Was not anywhere near what I was thinking. So I said to the doctor, this isn't funny. You tell my husband that I'm not laughing. I'm coming back there and I'm going to beat his tail when I get back there. And he was like, this isn't a joke. I'm sorry, this isn't a joke. What?
I mean, so young, and she has young children. How old were your children when this happened?
So, Georgia was 11. James had just turned 7, and Jackson, literally 4 days prior, had turned 3.
Yeah, so she had a very young family.
Yes.
And this is just something shocking. It was just completely out of the way.
Absolutely. We have never lost, on Jason's side of the family, no one has ever died of a heart attack. That's what the autopsy said, was that it was a widowmaker heart attack. Nobody in his family has ever died of heart-related disease, and also nobody had heart-related disease. No one. They all die of very old age or cancer or something as a combination of the two. Right. Never have they died of heart disease.
So where did you go from there?
Where do you go from there?
Right.
Like, I just, so an interesting thing about me is that I work best in a crisis.
Right.
And this is about the biggest crisis you can get. So I I knew exactly what I needed to do. I knew that I needed to plan this funeral. I needed to, I had to focus on what needed to be done, or else I don't know how I would have gotten through the day.
So I have a question for you. For when you are going through this, what can friends and family do, say, right when that happens? Because I think people are at a loss at what to do. Like, I don't even know. Like, I'm like, let me know if you need anything. Well, that's not really what you want to say. What could you do if you really want to help out?
Okay. So, first of all, I will say that the sentiment behind let me know what you need is wonderful. But the reality is that you're putting the responsibility back on me to even know what I need and
That's
to
a good
reach
point.
out for what I need.
Right.
So I have a friend that just showed up. I was sitting in my living room because I could not even fathom entertaining people, but everybody wants to come. They all want to bring a meal. But my friend, her name is Angela, she just was in the background cleaning the kitchen, doing the laundry, making sure that things were done around the house. She showed up every single day and did what needed to be done, and then she kind of disappeared. And
wow. How did she know to do that? That's so great.
Because that's Angela.
No,
That's just Angela.
So just showing up, even if it's to talk or to just help with minor things.
Right. So alternatively, Angela lost her son.
How old was he?
He was almost 2 when he passed away. He would now be, if Georgia is 15, almost 16, he'd be like 18, 19 years old now. Anyway, for her, I called every day. She lived in Gainesville, so I couldn't just show up, but I called every day. Some days it went to voicemail, some days she answered. And every day I let her lead the conversation as to what she wanted to talk about. Sometimes I would say, oh my gosh, do you remember when Evan would do this with me and how funny that was? And we would laugh. Or sometimes she just wanted to talk about the fact that she was cleaning the house. And sometimes she wanted to say absolutely nothing at all and not talk to anybody and just be a hermit in her bed.
So checking in and showing up when possible.
Yeah, but allowing them to...
Right, and just listening. And
yes.
And also, sometimes like reminiscing, they might have enjoyed just reminiscing.
Sometimes reminiscing.
Just read the room.
Yeah, tell me something. Angela's husband, at the time, now ex-husband, but Jim was great friends with Jason. So Jim told me things about my husband that I never knew. Just little things that Jason kind of did in the background that I never knew about. When Evan passed away and I was trying my hardest to be a great friend to Angela, I didn't know that Jason was taking care of Jim and being a great friend to Jim. And so Jim was telling me how much that meant to him. So these little things that I never knew. I'll tell you, somebody came up to me at my dad's funeral. I've lost my dad, you've lost your mom, and that's a completely different kind of loss.
It is.
But somebody came up to me and they said, your dad was my best friend.
Oh, wow.
I had no idea who he was. No idea. Because my dad just made everybody feel like that he was everybody's best friend. And I looked at him, and rather than say, I don't even know who you are, right? I just looked at him and I said, he was my best friend too, thanks. I appreciate you sharing that with me.
So what we can learn from this the most, though, is really that you think showing up and just being in the background.
Yeah, just like you said, read the room, try to figure it out.
Don't put the responsibility on them.
Don't put the responsibility on them because they've got a lot going on to begin with. If you can just show up and say, hey, I was going to take your kids to the park for a couple of hours. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, that's a great idea, actually.
Because I could have used that time to just take a bath and cry. Because I'm trying to be so strong for my children that I don't even know what to do.
Right.
For myself.
So, after Jason passed away and you had the, did you have a funeral or did you have, what did you do?
We did have a funeral. We We had it
I'm
at the
her cousin,
funeral.
and I don't know this. This is when we didn't live close by each other, and I'm really grateful that I moved to Middlebrook because I've had this second chance to be with my cousins. But I don't think I was a very good cousin, to be honest. I didn't know a lot that was going on. But go ahead. Just
I wouldn't have known. Like, honestly,
Right.
I probably would not have even known. What were we? Oh, the funeral. So we had it at the funeral home. I know my husband better than anybody, and it was also kind of during COVID,
right.
sort of as we were coming out of COVID. It was January of 21, but I knew him better than anybody, and I knew that he didn't want a church. He didn't want hymns. He didn't want any of that stuff. And so, interestingly, we talked all the time about my funeral. My family, as you know, is riddled with heart disease on my dad, your mom's side.
And planning funerals is kind of what we do on this side of the family.
Yeah, it's
we
just
know what to
do.
do. Yeah.
We talk about it. We over talk about it. And so I knew exactly, or he knew exactly what I wanted in those moments. Like, this is what you're going to do. And I would even say to him, and I want you to find someone. You will never take care of all of these kids on your own, you know, without help. Find someone, fall in love, you know, just
move on.
Yeah, like move forward.
Move forward, not on yet.
Yeah.
That's a better word, actually.
Yeah.
Moving forward is definitely moving on.
And I would say, and you'd want the same for me, right? And he would say, no, I'll haunt you, but we all know you're going to die first anyway.
And FYI, he does haunt her. Her light slipped her. There's lots of things happen. That's another podcast, but it's hilarious.
Yes, that is true. He did haunt me for a little while. Anyway, so we
did it at the funeral home.
We did it at the funeral home.
Did you speak?
I did the eulogy. I am the one that spoke.
Do you think that's important? Is that feels like closure or anything? Or
for me, or for just in general?
You.
For me, it was. Nobody knew him like I did. Here in America, all of his family is still in the UK.
Did his family come in?
No.
Okay.
That's kind of
the subject.
Yeah, that's I kind of talked myself out of being upset about that,
right.
if I'm being honest. But it's kind of resurfaced, and it does upset me that they didn't come.
Did they have a memorial service over there for Henry?
No.
Really? That's strange.
They blamed it on COVID restrictions from the UK. They would have had to quarantine and all of that.
Oh, I forgot about that. So traveling was really hard.
Traveling was difficult.
But not impossible.
But not an impossibility. It wasn't forbidden. So yes, it would have been a little bit more difficult for them to travel for it.
And that's their son.
And that's their son. And so I feel like they, at the time, like I said, I excused them. Oh, it's COVID. They can't. It's whatever it is. But now I've
right.
Anyway.
So you put him to rest. How did you explain this to your children when it first happened? I mean, like, how did you sit them down?
No, we were actually okay. So Amazon is over by the airport in Jacksonville, which is on the north side of Jacksonville. We were in Fernandina Beach.
Oh, so you're already up there.
We were already up that way when we got the call that he was being taken to the hospital. So I had all 4 of the kids.
Wow.
I keep talking about the 3. Let me be clear. Jason and I had 3. I had Christian before Jason. So all 4 of the kids were in the car. We're on the north side of town anyway. We go to the hospital. What am I supposed to say? I actually left all the kids in the car with my friend and walked inside and was like, hey, I'm just here to check on my husband. And they said, oh, we need you to go into the consultation room. Never go to the consultation room.
Yeah.
That's never a good sign.
Right.
And so otherwise they would just take you directly to your loved one.
Right, that's true.
So anyway, I walked back out to the I walked out to the car and I was like, guys, your dad is gone. He's passed away. And they were like, what? Christian immediately started crying. Georgia was just, the little boys didn't really understand what was going on. I asked them all if they wanted to go in and kind of have a final goodbye. This is also kind of traumatic because Jason died at work at 51 years old without a doctor, without being under medical care for something. And also when he died, he never took his wallet into work with him. Never. He would only take his ID badge. So all he had on him was his car keys.
Wow.
And a bag of aspirin. Not even in the bottle. So I was taking my kids in kind of one by one, but Georgia was really nervous about doing that.
To see him.
Yes, to kind of say their goodbyes. But finally, when Georgia got up the nerve to go in, we were met by detectives letting us know that they were only going to allow us so many minutes because now my husband was a crime scene.
He was? Why?
They had to investigate it as a homicide until they could rule that out. Since
Wow.
he died so mysteriously.
That's so much going on.
So then I even had to go and claim his property from the county. And
Now, how soon after he was declared dead in the hospital that you had the funeral?
so he died on Saturday and we had it the next Saturday.
Okay, well that's good. That's
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
A week's good.
Yeah, and we did everything what I feel like was just exactly how he would have wanted it, even as fast as it was, because we did have our bishop from our local ward come and give kind of a little talk on what we believe. But I let the bishop know that he needed to dumb it down, teach it like you're teaching a sunbeam, which is our 3-year-olds. Teach it like you're teaching a sunbeam, and if it's any longer than 2 minutes, Jason will get up and walk out himself.
Right. I love that. Now, after Jason passed away, how long was it before you started feeling, how long was that, the grief-stricken, can't move period? And then when did you feel like life can move forward?
So, because of our history and our family with all of the losses that we've had,
We have a lot of funerals on the Gullet side.
I feel like we handle death a little bit differently. To be clear,
It's not new.
by the time I was 10 years old, we had lost Mama, Papa, and Uncle James.
Right.
By the time I was 10. And I think you're 10 years older than me.
Listen, yes. And I want you to know, like, back when I was a teenager and stuff, I remember I would be singing at a funeral like once a week, it felt like.
It felt like.
It just, giving a talk or singing at a funeral was Tuesday,
Like, how many 10-year-olds know all the words to God be with you till we meet again?
I know. Yeah. That was us.
That was us. So I feel like our family handles death a little bit differently than most families. And so for me, it really was about my kids. My sister and I, we have a business, and I couldn't not go to work. I needed to work. As my new husband will tell you, working is mental health.
Right.
It helps with your mental health. And so I feel like that's kind of where I was.
Right.
I needed to work. But I didn't always go to work with a happy face. I remember one day I just walked in, looked at my sister, and cried.
Right. You're very close.
Cried. And she hugged me and didn't let go of me until I was ready to move on with the day.
Right. Casey's so great.
My sister is sunshine, all wrapped up in this beautiful, happy package that just knows what everybody needs.
You're very
all
blessed.
the time.
'Cause that's a rare talent.
I could not be more blessed if I tried.
Right. Now here's a question, because I really want to get to the life after loss.
Yes.
But in a quick way, what did Jason do that made it easier after he died, or was it just all hard, like insurance wise and all that? What should people have done?
Okay, so nothing has been easy because Jason did not have insurance.
Well, I don't have all my stuff together, and I'm 60 this year,
Yes. So definitely get your affairs in order. Like, you have to do that, not for you, but for your loved one. Don't think about it like, oh, well, hopefully nothing will ever happen to me, because guess what? 100% of people all die.
Right.
We're gonna all die at some point. So let's just get it taken care of. And everything is cheaper when you do it.
So what would have
younger.
made it easier?
A nice big insurance policy
Right.
would have been a lot easier. But outside of that, we owned our home. I'm not an attorney, so this is not legal advice, but I owned my home as husband and wife, which just means when he died, it automatically went to me.
Right. You just filed a death certificate and a continuous marriage affidavit at the
Correct.
courthouse.
And then his car, his card somehow was able to be transferred into my name. I did have a moment there where I cried. I was like, it's like they're just erasing him. Like, he's just being erased. Make sure that if you don't co-own your account with someone, you make them your beneficiary on your
bank account.
On your bank account.
Okay.
Because I did not co-own Jason's bank account, but I was the beneficiary on it, and so it automatically came to me. When my dad died, I was the co-owner of one of his bank accounts, and I knew exactly what he wanted done with that, which was basically give it to my mom. But my mom was the beneficiary, so either one of us could have done
So that's
whatever
interesting.
with
It's
it.
different between being on the account and then being a beneficiary of the account.
Right.
So you can be a beneficiary of the account without actually being on the account.
Correct.
Okay, so make sure that happens so that we don't have.
And-
Because if it didn't, you wouldn't be able to access the money.
And the life insurance, the beneficiary in the life insurance gets that money.
Who was his beneficiary?
Well, he didn't have life insurance.
Okay.
He didn't have a policy. But in other words, don't assume that because you put your kids down that your wife will be able to manage it for the kids.
Okay. So
You need to make sure it's an adult, a trusted adult.
right.
So all of my stuff right now is in my sister's name. So if anything happens to me,
Casey handled it.
Casey, we'll go looking at Casey for
Right.
why it happened to me.
Right.
But
yeah.
But if anything happens to me, it's all in Casey's name so
Right.
that she can handle things. I do have an adult son, but when Georgia and Christian are both adults, so even though he's an adult, when Georgia becomes an adult in 3 years, I will most likely change it from Casey to the 2 adult children
That's a good
so
idea.
that they can take care of their siblings.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Now, is your home just in your name now?
My home is in my name.
Okay. So after this, now I
Okay.
remember Cassie went through this little fun period of, you know, I won't say it as a dating phase, but a little bit like she went to New York with her sister, but next thing I know, I hear that she's riding in this Federal Express truck with these guys that just said, "Hey, come ride with us for a second." They took her around the block. So
That's
she was a
true.
bunch of fun during her.
That's true.
How long
Yes.
did it take you to get to the fun part?
Okay, so it interestingly enough, it didn't take that long. Probably about 3 or 4 months before I was finally.
And I
starting
think
to
that's
feel good.
indicative to our family, though.
Yes, I do. But I was out making a delivery for work, and I got to this lady's house, and there was a guy there doing something in her yard, and him and I kind of looked at each other, and the sparks just started flying, and I thought, okay. That's how I knew my heart was open and ready to.
Did it
start
feel
to move.
weird? Because when I divorced my second husband, it felt so weird to date.
No.
No.
It did not for me.
I had to keep telling myself, I'm single. I'm single. I'm single. Because I literally, when you've been married 27 years, it really just,
Yeah.
it's like you forget.
I was married for 15.
Yeah.
So it was quite a few years, but no, I think because
transitioned
I
well.
waited until it felt like I was ready. Maybe if I would have started too soon, like, you know, for too
Right.
soon for me.
Well, somebody, for you, yeah, because 3 months might be too soon for somebody else.
3 months might be, but I will
In
tell
gullet
you,
time, that's forever.
I was at your brother's band thing at Salt Life one night, and your dad and I were widows at the same time. He had lost Rita
Right.
about 2 weeks after I lost Jason, and then about 2 weeks after that, I'm at this thing with your brother, my cousin, and I'm talking with him, and I was like, "Oh, your dad's here." And then right behind him, I was like, "With a date." And he was like, your brother literally looked at me and was like, "Yeah, where's yours?" And I said, "My husband's been dead a week. A month. Could you maybe give me a minute? Like, just give me a minute." He's like, "Yeah, just don't take too long."
Right.
But I remember my dad at your mother's funeral. After the funeral, I wasn't there, but I've heard stories. My dad and my uncles were talking to your dad about dating at your mother's funeral.
Well,
So that's
in
just
gullet
what
time,
we do.
never know when we're going to go. My mom's side of the family is very volatile as far as, living rates. And so we can't waste time.
No, I mean my dad
3
was,
months might be 5 years for a normal person.
Yes, my dad was 61 when he died,
Right.
and he was old because Uncle Jasper was like 59,
I
and
know.
Uncle James was 35.
I know I'm turning 60, so I'm like, this is the death decade. I know. I don't want to be that way, but it feels that way.
Well, I'm turning 50 this year, so
We'll make you 50 look good. Well, okay, so after that, you're dating this guy, but when did you meet Mauricio? Because she's got her a hot Cuban.
Colombian,
but man, he's yummy.
he is definitely.
So what happened? I know you met him at Walmart, but how long ago was it? How long?
So Jason died in January. I met Mauricio in November 17th of 21, the same year.
She was getting her kids vaccinated at Walmart, right, to go to visit Jason's parents in the UK.
For Christmas.
And so she was there, and that Mauricio just happens to be there.
He happened to be there, and James, sweet little James, was trying to say something in Spanish. It was some vaccination poster that they had in Spanish. So he's trying to say it, and he's like, Mom, is that how you say it? And I went, I don't know. And then I hear this voice, this gorgeous voice from over my shoulder say, and he said what it was, and I was like, and then I tried everything I could to try to find a way to talk to him, but he was quite reserved, but we kept looking at each other, exchanging glances. So I knew it wasn't just me, but man, oh man.
So how did you transition? So you meet each other, then what?
Okay, so he happened to be wearing a shirt from where he worked. He is a restaurant server manager, and at that Walmart, the restaurant was like right across the parking lot.
Salsas, best commercial, that's good.
It's delicious. Anyway, so he left. Like he did kind of say goodbye and gave me a final glance, and then he left, and I was sitting there going, look, what just happened? And so I decided I am going to go over there and I'm going to give the hostess my number. Because I saw the shirt.
Oh my gosh, Cassie, I did not know this.
I'm gonna go give the hostess my number. I'm just gonna go up to her and be like, hey, whoever that guy was at Walmart just now, please give him this. So we walk out of Walmart, and you can see Salsa's.
I know, it's Walmart Neighborhood Market.
Yes. And so as we're walking out, I'm telling my kids, go sit in the car for a second. I'll be right back. I'm just gonna walk over here. And they were like, okay. And so I started to walk over, and as I was walking over, he was outside talking to somebody. Like both of them were outside talking, but I could see he was looking in my direction, and I was like, oh my gosh. But because there was somebody else with him, I thought, I'm going to walk straight past him to go to the hostess and be like, that guy out there, get my number. But as soon as I started walking up, the other guy went back inside.
Okay, so what happened?
So then it was just him, and I was like, oh my gosh, like deer in the headlights. And he
That's so brave of you.
I have never in my life, and he doesn't believe me, but I have never in my life approached a man like that, ever. It's never happened. But anyway, so he's standing there. I walk up. I said, hi. He's like, hi. I said, I just was curious if maybe you wanted my number. And just like this, he went, okay. And he put my number in. Like, he took my number. And I was like, okay. Bye.
Did we disappoint with his response?
I did not know what was going to happen.
Right.
Like, he just was so...
nonchalant?
Yeah. Blasé, as my mom might say. I was like, okay. So I ran home because it was a Wednesday, and I was getting my kids ready to go to a hockey game. We love the Jacksonville Icemen, and so we were all getting ready to go to a hockey game. On my way to the hockey game, I got a text through WhatsApp, which is how I communicate with Jason's family in the UK. So it's kind of an international texting thing. So I was like, so anyway, it was just a, hi, how are you text? And I was like, hi, you know, is this Mauricio? And the response was yes. And we haven't stopped texting since.
Really?
Yeah. Like we have.
When did you actually, because so you go to the Iceman, when did you actually see him again?
The very next day.
Where?
He asked me on a date for the very next
Where
day.
Where did he say, how did he do that?
He just said, when can I see you?
Wow.
And I said, I'm...
I wish I had a picture of Mauricio. Seriously, yummy. I mean, he's just, everything when you think of a Latin man.
Yes.
That's what Mauricio is.
Yes. Yeah, it was very, literally, when can I see you? And I said, well, I have tomorrow and Friday off. He said, can I take you to lunch tomorrow?
I think
said,
starting with lunch is a nice thing, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't feel so much pressure.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to get all dressed up for lunch.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Lunch feels a little more casual.
And can I tell you something about lunch? My sister stalked me.
What did she do?
She came and
Shut
ordered a pizza from that place we were at. I had no idea. I didn't even know. She took a picture like this
Oh my gosh.
with me and him in the background.
I mean, so she just, and you had no idea she's there. How did she know you were going? Because he told you where y'all were going?
I told her this is what we're doing. I mean,
Well, you should. Actually, that's a good point.
I was so
when you're
excited.
dating somebody, people should know that you're with this person.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good idea, actually.
But yes, I was just so stinking excited that I was like,
So after the date, so you're talking, what did you learn in that date? What made you go, it's okay to feel this way? Like, because, I mean, it's only been a couple months.
it had been almost a year, but
Right.
yes. I think because I waited until it felt right,
Right.
to start moving forward. I think that's
Did you get criticism for dating?
always.
So what do you say about that?
I say, how long do I need to be alone and lonely for you to feel comfortable with my personal life?
That's interesting. Because I so 1,000% agree with you.
Yeah.
It amazes me what people get their noses in, you know, but I understand what people, I can understand both points of view, but the truth is, I like how she phrased that. How long does she have to suffer for me to feel better about it? That's just unbelievable.
Yeah. It's
So,
not about
We need
it's
to keep
not
our
about
opinions.
you.
It's not keeping our opinions to ourselves. It's just we need to understand that. I think people are inspired for their lives.
I think that people have genuine concern,
Mm-hmm.
and I can appreciate that. But also, I think that we need to kind of give grace to the person who has lost, and don't just assume they're trying to replace someone or
Right.
that they're making bad decisions.
Right.
Because
So,
they're not.
You're at the
always.
pizza place.
We're at the Italian restaurant.
Italian
yes.
restaurant, and you're talking and getting to know each other. Did he
Mhm.
speak good enough English?
Yes.
Okay, good. And then what happens at that lunch? I mean, he goes back to work, or you go. What's happening?
So
It ends, and
it
what?
ends, and he walked me to my car and he kissed me, and I almost fell over because it was that
Latin kiss.
powerful. Yeah. But he asked when he can see me again. When can I see you again?
That's so great.
Yep. And I was actually going off that weekend with my friend Melissa, who was also really wonderful through all of this with Jason. Melissa's daughter's birthday was that weekend, and so we were going to Disney. And so, so we went to Salsa's on our way out of town, so I could see him then. That was on Friday night, and then we spent all day Saturday at Disney, and then we came back Saturday evening, kind of late, and I said, I'm back, and he said, I want to see you.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So did he come over? What happened?
He did. Yeah, he came over. We hung out for a little bit. It was kind of later. The kids were already in bed. He never...
What did your kids think?
So I told my daughter that I had a date on Thursday. I was telling her on Thursday morning we were doing something, and I said, I have a date in just a little bit. And she was like, with that guy from Walmart? And I said, how did you know? She was like, oh my gosh, I could tell the two of you. You know, she just automatically knew. I would have never introduced my kids to just anyone. I want to be clear about that. But I tried to time it so that either he was coming over when the kids were already in bed, and it's nothing nefarious. It's not, you know, anything. It just, I just didn't want them.
How long did you date before you kind of introduced him?
Well, obviously he knew the two kids already, but only just in passing. So it was probably February time frame. I think it was
Which
Super
is actually
Bowl.
a very long time in Gullah land.
Yes. So it was.
Because when we date, a week is a year.
Yes, yes. Well, and especially as much as we were seeing each other, because we were seeing each other almost every single day. And then we it was Super Bowl Sunday. I invited him over and said, let's all get together. So he came to watch the Super Bowl with us, and he met the kids, and we just had
How long after you met did y'all marry?
5 months
5 months.
to the day.
Well, that's another gullet thing too, because we try, and we're not always successful at it, but we feel like we should be in a formal relationship when we're going to be hanging out and banging each other. So we move fast.
That's true.
It is true.
I married Jason after 5 months also.
Yeah.
But that situation was a little bit different in the sense that he lived in the UK and I lived here, and it did not make sense for one of us to move to date.
Right.
So let's just get married.
Right. Right. So my question is, so what's your feeling? What would you say somebody else is going through this? Something similar. What advice would you tell them that you wish somebody would have said to you?
Trust my gut, because as long as you trust your gut, there's no wrong decisions. As long as you are doing right by your late spouse, as far as arrangements, as far as what the kids need to do and all of that, as long as you're doing right by the traditions that the two of you have already set up, there's really no wrong choices and decisions here.
What have you loved about finding love after loss?
Well, I feel like I will say, number one, that the me I was with Jason died the day Jason died. And I have emerged this new person. There was a lot I gave up for the good of my marriage, if you will. And I don't mean that as a cut to Jason in any way. I mean that like, I love football. Football is life. I love football.
It's interesting. I love football too, and Ralph does not, so I don't watch it that much.
Jason, being from the UK,
yeah.
Jason being from the UK was not into football. Right. He would sit on the couch and watch it with me, but the whole time he's like, I don't know why you keep watching this team. They suck. They whatever. My Jaguars, you know. And he wasn't wrong, but at the same time, you know, I don't want to listen to that while I'm watching my football, and so I would either go to another bedroom or I just want to watch it. I got to be a football fan again. I got to watch and do all of my football stuff again. So this person that I am now is different in the sense that I get to be who I truly am again. And so it's created this life for me. I like to tell people now that I have cultivated this life and this family that is purely mine.
Right.
And nobody else's.
Are there things that you miss about Jason? See, it makes it, this question might sound like her hesitation is like, it wasn't good. No, it's not it. I think Cassie has a very innate ability to embrace the now. And so, because living in the past or regurgitating all that, it won't serve her, I think. And that's something I actually admire about her, and I want to be more like. She's a very present person.
Right, and I say it's the power of and.
Okay. Explain the power of and.
Okay. I can feel sad that he's gone and happy and content in my life now.
Wow. I'm going to tell you, I needed to hear that because I'm wondering, when I feel really at a peaceful place in my marriage right now, my third marriage, why that sometimes I can get sad about my marriage to Matt. Because I really wanted that marriage to work. But that doesn't mean I want to go back to it either.
Right.
So I like what she just said because I needed to hear that. I can be sad about what I lost in my marriage with Matt, but I can also enjoy where I'm at now.
Yes. And I think that I was told, and again, this kind of goes back to the in-law situation, the former in-law situation. When I originally told them, I have met someone, he's becoming important to me. How comfortable are you with me sharing these details? They said, we wish we could be happy for you, but we will be stuck in this grief forever. We don't want to know. And I feel very strongly, you can correct me if I'm wrong, because you've been saying this whole time that gullets just do it differently. I really feel like my family would have said, even though we miss Cassie,
Mm-hmm.
we are happy for you.
Well, yeah, I'm gonna sit with my dad after Rita died along with Leslie. I mean, she was at a basketball game. She's my boss's my former boss's assistant's mother.
Mm-hmm.
She was there, and she was like, "Who's that guy with you?" I'm like, "That's my daddy." But hey, I gave him their numbers. I'd be like, "Let me get your number," and then So I just think that we also believe in. It's like, I'll be honest with you. It's like Sterling. Sterling has a major heart condition. He's my nephew.
So does my son. The
And
same
the same
one.
heart condition, which is interesting because her second son has it. My second son died. My mother's second son died. Jennifer's second son. I'm just telling you, so
My mother's second son.
and your mother's second son. Like there's a second son thing. So I'm wondering if mine had a heart problem.
My mom thought the same thing.
Yeah,
about Josh.
and that they didn't have the medical things that they have now. But anyway, Sterling always kind of lives like tomorrow he may die, because he's living in the moment.
Because he could.
Because he can, because you never know with his heart. So I'm like, I sometimes think Gullet side, we die young in the Gullet sides of the family. So we're like, we have got to move on. We got to move forward.
Off topic, I told the cardiologist about Sterling when I found out about James, and they told me that it is absolutely not hereditary because your nephew and my son are too far in the family tree. If it were,
I would wonder if that's true, because
I
second sons and the Gullet side of the family don't have a good chance of hanging out too long.
I never put those two together though. But
Isn't
yes,
that weird?
it is
I've
the
lost
second.
mine. I mean, there's just a ton.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not. It feels more than coincidental.
Yeah.
So, what would you say to somebody who's had a loss? What would you say to them that if they're getting a bunch of opinions, what would you tell them?
To just tune them out. And I will say that there's a lot of stuff I believe people think I listened to, because I would just, but really, I just didn't listen to it, because nobody knows what I need more than.
Now, do you celebrate Jason's birthday? Do you bring him up at home?
So
how does Mauricio feel? Do you bring up memories with his kids?
This is an interesting thing, because Jason and I shared a birthday.
Oh.
So.
Her husband that passed away.
Yes. So Jason's birthday is September 17th. My birthday is September 17th. He was 6 years older than me to the day. I kind of jokingly told my kids, I'm taking my birthday back. But how do you really not celebrate him on his birthday? Each one of my children, and another interesting point is that this is another thing I just talked to Jason's parents about. They're really not happy. Anyway, I was telling them that there's pictures of Jason. Each child has 3 pictures of Jason in their room. One of just Jason, one of them with Jason, and then one of all of us as a family in their bedrooms. And my little Jackson even wants Jason in his room with him, because we cremated him. We lovingly call it barbecue.
Yeah.
I'm going to be barbecued also, unless my kids, have an issue with it. But just do it up. I don't care. Anyway, bring the s'mores. Just, but we don't have pictures in the out living areas. Actually, that's not even true. There are some, but they're not as prominent as the pictures of me, Mauricio, and our children.
Right.
Because I want to honor. Listen, when I married Jason, and I know divorce is different than death, but I didn't have pictures of Christian's dad all over my house. I didn't feel the need, but Christian had pictures in his room of his dad, because dads are important.
When my dad was dating Rita, she stayed at my home in my guest bedroom, and I had a picture of my parents' wedding day in my guest bedroom in my home. She was furious.
Oh, that's not okay.
I mean, okay, so that I shouldn't have taken that down.
No, absolutely not.
Okay.
No, that's your home.
Yeah.
And it's your mother and your dad, and you can celebrate them however you want.
I was in my guest room at that.
Yeah.
She was furious. She thought it was very rude of me.
If she maybe thought you put it up right before she came,
No.
just to be like a,
No. Well,
here's the real mom,
No.
that would be one thing.
She was staying at my home for weeks on end.
Yeah.
I was bucking her.
No.
Okay, so
That's-
I'm going to let that go.
Yeah. No, that's not okay.
What do you think? What's the best part? Of
Because if Mauricio tried to tell my children to take down their picture of their dad
forget it.
in their bedroom, I would tell him he's
Crazy.
overstepped.
Right.
Yes. Anyway, you were going to say.
So, what is the hardest thing, and what's the best part of moving forward after loss?
So, the hardest thing, obviously, is just the kids. You know, I try really hard to, like you said, Jason's a part of our everyday life as much as he was when he was physically here. We talk about him all the
And
time.
Mauricio doesn't mind.
Oh no, of course not.
Awesome.
Because I'm not sitting
Mauricio's fantastic.
Mauricio is wonderful. I think Mauricio would have a problem if it was me going, oh, I miss Jason so much. I wish he were here. Right? Like that I could see. But it's not. It's, hey mom, what was dad's favorite soccer team?
Okay.
What was dad's eye color? You know, those sorts of things. The kids are not asking me to, I don't know, like it's, I am not the one crying to Mauricio about how much I miss Jason and wish he could
So
be
what's
back.
the hardest part then with the kids? I mean, what's the hardest part after loss?
I'm not sure that there is a hardest part.
Okay. Well, what's
Honestly,
the next part moving forward?
I'm closer to my children than I have ever been.
Wow.
We are such a connected unit. My daughter and I were on that very typical mother-daughter path of being at each other's throats all the time.
Well, she was turning into a teenager, so
She was turning into
my mother
a
always
teenager.
said raising a teenager is like being pet to death by a duck.
Correct. Correct. So she was definitely headed in that direction, but his death brought us all so much closer together that it kind of healed us as a family.
That's so great. It's
Yeah.
great that you can come together because sometimes death can pull families apart.
Correct.
So I guess that's a choice you have to make: is come together versus fall apart.
As a mother, you have to let go of a lot of the BS, a lot of it. There's a lot of things that, in the grand scheme of things, are just not worth the fight.
Right. You know, my mother did something interesting. I had a brother. The brother that was born after me passed away, the second son. And my mother, I felt like I really knew him. He only lived to be 2 days old. But every year we celebrated his birthday. I've lost my second son. So on May 19th, I always celebrate his birthday, Gary Boyd. And I'm just saying, my mother kept him alive, and we had a picture of him at 2 days old, and I felt like I knew him as my brother. So we celebrate his birthday every year. I liked how my mother kept him.
So
There was a stocking with his name, you know.
My mom, we only have one family picture with Joshua in it. And she has other pictures, but just one family picture with Josh in it. And
That's her mother. That's her brother that passed away.
That's my brother that passed away. So that's there. Growing up, Josh was always talked about. Not, come on kids, let's talk about your brother. It was just, you know, in passing we would say things. We always knew when his birthday was. We definitely know when his birthday is now, because now that passwords are a thing, his name and combination of name and birthday and all of that is my mom. Like, if you know my brother and his birthday, you could get into anything with my mother. But I will tell you something about my dad one day is I walked in, my parents have a table, like when you walk in from their garage, you're immediately looking at the table. And I walked in and my dad was just sitting at the table like this. And he was just sitting there. I'm an adult. Like Josh died when I was 2 years old. I am an absolute adult with my own family. My dad was still alive, so this was, a little more than 10 years ago, 11 years ago. But he was just sitting there and I said, good morning. And he went, oh, hey, baby. But not like his usual, hey, what are you doing here type of thing. And I went, everything okay? And he goes, yeah, just thinking about your brother. I went, my brother, what's going on with him? And he was like, no, about Josh. And I went, wow, you thinking about Josh? And he goes, yeah, I think about him from time to time. I really miss that guy.
Wow.
He was 10 weeks old.
That gives me goosebumps.
Yeah. He was 10 weeks old.
He died from what they call stillbirth, not stillbirth,
SIDS.
SIDS, yeah.
Sudden infant death
sudden
syndrome.
infant death. Right, I remember that. I actually remember
Crib
when
death.
that happened.
Crib death
Crib
was.
death. I mean, your mother actually, when we flew out, not flew out, we drove out, and then when we drove back, we took your mom with us.
Yep.
And she had a little convertible, and I was like begged to ride in that car. But
The yellow car.
yeah, the yellow convertible. Yeah, but anyways, so
I
you
remember
feel,
his funeral. Well, I remember being in the funeral home, and I remember like the knees of people like weaving through them, and I remember him in his little baby casket. But
now would you? So if somebody came to you,
mm-hmm.
and you'd be pro dating after loss.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
I tried to get my mother to date, to do something. It was really interesting dynamic because me and Cassie were like, Mom, don't be alone. Go do. Whereas my younger brother, of all people, was like, absolutely not. No, you don't need to do any of that. You know, it was like he couldn't quite grasp.
Men
that
and women
side of
think
it.
differently too, because we're thinking about companionship and all these things, and I think men just think about sex. You know,
Maybe, and so maybe that's why he felt that way. He couldn't imagine my mom.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm not saying that we don't have sex. I'm just saying, you know, we're thinking of a whole different spectrum of things.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I mean, when you're comfortable and ready, I wish I would have printed it out whenever I found it, but there was an article that I found on the internet where they were following older couples. They were following them with marriage. And just trying to get an idea of like the type of marriage they had, whether or not it was a good marriage, and they were like, you know, just following some statistics. As it turns out, most of them had a spouse die within the time that they were following them. And so then they continued to follow them to find out what would happen after death. Mm-hmm. And they said that those who were in the better marriages, the happier marriages, were more likely to start dating sooner than those who were not. Because those who were not typically had the attitude of, I'm not getting back into that. Whereas those who had the happier marriages were typically like, I miss that companion, I want a companion.
That's such an interesting concept, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, I remember when I was dating after Matt, I divorced with Matt. Oh, sorry, my flaw is coming out. Tracy, my dear friend from St. George, Utah, I told her, I'm like, I don't know. I mean, he has children. My husband now had children when he was like 38 years old. I was already a grandmother at 40. You know, I was just like, he's like, Tracy told me, Pam, if he didn't have baggage, he'd be an older man living with his mother in the basement playing video games.
This is true.
And I'm like, that's so true. And then she also told me, which is really, this one phrase changed everything how I felt. She goes, Pam, it takes real courage to date.
Especially
in your 50s. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
She goes, it takes real courage. So it made me feel like I have courage. Because I kind of felt weird, you know, dating. Did you ever feel weird? No.
I guess just because of my age and stuff, it did feel a little weird to kind of put myself out there.
Mm-hmm. Because it's a scary thing to do.
Yeah, because, you know.
You were so ballsy taking your number over there.
Yes, well, I mean, it worked out.
Right.
It worked out. But it was interesting whenever I moved my wedding ring from my finger to my necklace.
How long did you wait to do that?
So that probably took me about 3 or 4 months. I wore it. Actually, I didn't wear my wedding ring every day because I've lost a little bit of weight. I used to be bigger, and so my wedding ring fit the bigger me. And so working with food and everything else, I just didn't even wear my ring during the week. And so it wasn't unusual to not wear it during the week, but you know, I did move it to a necklace with Jason's. It's still on that necklace. I don't wear it every day anymore, but I still have it with me all the time. But I moved it to a necklace, and it was interesting that once that ring came off of my finger, I started getting looks. I started getting...
Really?
Yeah, I was really kind of surprised by that. Here I am driving a minivan. You know, I used to say that if I was going to have like I know Tinder's probably not the way to go, but if I were to have like some sort of dating profile, the headline would be, I was 45 when I lost my husband, 45-year-old widow with 4 kids, but my minivan's paid off. You know, that would be like my
I always
intro.
kept saying mine would be an ex-con of that dance teacher who married her student. But I mean, I have such a negative push on mine, but you have such a positive push. But anyways, I just want to thank you so much, Cassie, because I want to have Cassie come back. There's, first of all, tons more to talk about. And not only that, but she also likes some of the reality TV.
The traders, we have a lot to talk about.
I love the traders. But we got to talk about the traders, so we'll get together. But thank you so much, Cassie, for joining us.
Of course.
And we're going to head off today. And y'all have a wonderful day. We hope you'll tune in. Have a great day. Bye.
Okay, don't put. I'm going to ask these questions. You can cut
Okay.
off if you don't like it. Okay.
She's asking a question.
First thing is, do you think it might have been harder for you to move on because your husband was still alive, maybe?
Oh, that could have been.
Because it was divorce,
That could have been. Right. Mm-hmm.
So that was my first thing. And the other thing is, do you think the parents not coming and maybe their attitudes had to do with culture a bit, maybe?
I think that coming, and this might be a whole other episode, but I think that his parents not coming had more to do with not wanting to accept.
Okay.
It was more of an acceptance thing, because when I did finally tell them, I literally have now told them that I am remarried and everything else. I think that hearing that I'm remarried, they have to then know and accept that their son is not here. I can only be remarried if their son is not here.
He also lived across the
Because you were
pond,
so
so
far away.
they could
Yep.
fantasize that he was
Pretend
still
that
there.
he was still there.
Yep.
Okay, and do you think that a funeral is more about the person's choices or the people who are left behind?
So I think that it's a combination. It should be about what that person wanted, but a funeral really is for those of us here, because what is he doing?
Right.
He was just
But
laying
it
in
brought
a
you
box.
peace that you did what he would like.
It brought me peace that I did what I thought he would want, since we never really talked about it. And I also spoke
But I
about
can see that point. It is really for the people that stayed.
it is for the people that stayed, but those who knew Jason like I do would have known that that was perfect for
Right.
him, because he loved AC/DC, so we played all AC/DC music.
Right.
Which would be a reminder of him for the people that were
And we asked people to wear their favorite rock band shirts and
Right. That
stuff.
sounds
So
cute.
And death, do you find, brings a lot of extremes, don't you think? Extremes in feelings, extremes in emotion, and so, like, for instance, the parents not accepting it. That's kind of an extreme,
Yes.
right? And then the fact that you got closer to your children. That's an extreme that happened, that was great, that happened after.
Yes.
Do you think that...
yes, I would never say that I'm grateful Jason died,
Right.
but I am grateful for the things that happened because of
But that's a
his death.
Cassie trait.
Well, I think that also comes with, and this is my next thing, is that I think it comes from giving grace, don't
Yes.
you think? Giving grace as the person that's affected by the death and others that are affected. And
I just said to somebody the other day, dealing with Jason's parents, I said that I continue to give them grace because they've lost a son. I don't know what that's like. They are definitely taking longer to move through their grief than I did, but it's because I live with this all day, every day, and
Right.
they only have to deal with it on birthdays and holidays. So I'm trying really hard to
That's
give them
interesting.
grace.
That's true.
But when do they start giving me grace?
Right. And just so everybody knows, Tracy, come here. Tracy is visiting from St. George, and I just wanted to give her a little shout out here. She's visiting, so she's got some questions.
From
Okay.
St. Augustine via St. George.
Right. I babysat Tracy when I was 14. She was 9, and we've been friends ever since.
another thing, I kind of might make this a little bit of a comment, is that one thing about remarrying and the struggle and all of that, of having to somebody pass away, I don't think people understand that love grows.
Yes, it
Love
does
is-
not.
Love is not contained. So once love grows here, and like you said, if you have a happy marriage, you're more likely to be married again. And so love grows and becomes bigger. So you can still love and hold a space for Jason and also include Mauricio, right? Because
Correct.
it grows bigger. It doesn't get
Yes.
smaller.
Yes, absolutely.
I love that
I
phrase.
do not have to remove
Right.
Jason, and
To
it's,
love Mauricio.
it's kind of like with your children. you don't have one child and then when you get pregnant with a second one think, oh crap, I gotta get rid of this one so I can
Or
love
I've got to
this
divide
one.
my love now. It doesn't get less, it just
No,
grows
it
bigger.
keeps growing.
That's interesting how you do with children. That's a good analogy because
Yes.
it's true. I didn't
Yes.
even know I could feel that way towards another person after I had my
Yeah.
second child. You know, you just it does just grow.
It does
My
grow.
love didn't go down
Yes,
for
that's
my
a-
first child. You
That's
know.
a very great point.
But
and I
anyways,
appreciate
I'm
you
going to head
mentioning
out to an appointment and thank you everybody for joining us and we'll talk to y'all soon. Bye.